Yay! Yes, we are live. Welcome everyone at a new episode on Team Copilots, and we have a special guest today, a really special guest. Where are you in the world right now? Tell us. You had a little introduction. You said you are.
Yeah, I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States.
Great. So Dani and I are in the Netherlands, and I'm in a hotel at the moment. So that's really funny that we are in different kind of places. So if you see people around walking around, that's all possible because we are doing a lot of fun things all over the place. But for now, we are going to talk about cowork, and we ask Eve. Did we say Eve? Is that right? Do I spell your name on the right way?
Efe.
Efe. Wow. Sorry for that. That's always funny. Efe. We ask you to share some knowledge around Copilot Cowork. Of course, Dani and I are doing a lot with our customers about Cowork as well. Yesterday evening, and I think that's really interesting to share a little bit. Yesterday evening, Dani and I did a webinar for a lot of big group of people who are also really enthusiastic about Cowork. And there are a few things that we are seeing there because we got a lot of questions, and everyone is searching for the right scenarios. Everyone is searching for how can I add on leadership that they understand that I want this, and how can I add sharing that it's have value, and how can you really start from the beginning part, understand what it can do. And we had one tip that I want to share there that I really like to share for everyone, that probably everyone needs to hear, is start, for example, with creating with Cowork and first prompts to get information about your email box or things that you already can handle every day, a short thing that gives you information about getting updated. And then you see how that kind of things work, like putting a concept email or something like that, that you, really understand what Cowork is, because it's way different than only working with Copilot itself, and now with Cowork. We really need to understand what it is. And I think you're going to help us with all of these things as well, giving us some scenarios and some lessons learned. So thank you for that. Thank you for being here. And maybe you can, introduce yourself a little bit more.
Yeah, sure. And Femke and Dani, thank you for having me. Happy to be here. Hey, everyone out there in the audience. My name is Efe Abugo. I am a senior product marketing manager at Microsoft on the Microsoft 365 Copilot team, particularly focused on AI at work evangelism. So enabling our customers to get the most out of Copilot and the entire agentic ecosystem, testing out and delivering different workflows and prompts and tasks, and working with our engineering partners to help to shape the product. And in addition to that, I've been leading our CMO, Takeshi Namoto's, his Copilot adoption V team across Microsoft's marketing organization. So I've been in the thick of Copilot for a few years now, and it's excited and happy to be here to share with you all a little about Cowork today.
Awesome. So I put your presentation on.
Awesome.
There you go.
All right. So let's get right to it. So here today, we're going to talk about Copilot Cowork. And Cowork is an awesome functionality and capability within the Copilot ecosystem that allows us to move beyond just prompting and responding to being able to work with AI and Copilot to plan, take real action, and to delegate the meaningful work that you need to do in your day-to-day jobs and roles. So we're going to go to the next slide here. And today's goal, I know folks in the audience, some of you might be using Cowork on the daily. Some of you might just be getting introduced to Copilot Cowork today. So my aspiration is to help increase everyone's familiarity with Copilot Cowork and inspire confidence to take on those more complex, multi-step tasks and that work that we all need to get done in this extremely fast-moving environment and AI era that we find ourselves in today. So let's get right into it. So why now? Why is Copilot Cowork so important? And to put it simply, the workday has changed, and AI has changed with it. It's moving from a place where you can go to still accomplish a lot, right? But we're still working in that prompt and response model to somewhere where you can go to help carry your big work items forward. And there are three kind of themes or trends that I've been seeing in my work and with the customers I speak to that have been driving this evolution. And the first is how we think about models and harnesses. So we're typically used to working with an LLM, such as Microsoft 365 Copilot and the models we provide, kind of in isolation, just the model itself. But when we introduce a tool like Copilot Cowork, the model is no longer working alone. We're introducing long-running task execution, agentic autonomous capabilities, so a tool that can go out and do work for us, tool use, so imagine using Word, PowerPoint, Excel, being able to incorporate skills, deep reasoning, and of course, that enterprise grounding that the model can now access to bring in all of our data and our context and that knowledge about the work that we're doing. And the next 1.2 is context. And work is more fragmented than ever. I'm sure we all can relate. In any given day, in any given moment, I know I am pulling context and working across meetings and chats and files and emails and all these different conversations. So the data is there and we have access to it, but how do we make sense of it and pull it all together in a cohesive way that's going to support the work that we're doing with AI? And the third is workload, right? The world is moving fast. The AI industry world is moving even faster, some might say. And there's more demands on all of us. We're being asked to move faster, to stay aligned, and produce more in the same amount of hours that we have in the day. And that's why having an AI tool or solution where you can delegate important and meaningful parts of your work matter now more than ever before. So next slide here, we're going to talk about a step change that has been occurring to kind of help illustrate where we were maybe 3.5, 4 years ago, depending on when you got into the generative AI landscape to today. And level one was that, a model as a component of your work. That's when, you would go to Microsoft 365 Copilot. You might say, summarize this, classify that. Can you draft this email or, the copy for a particular section of a document? And that really unlocked point in time generation. You had speed and you didn't have to draft manually, but you were still going back and forth with the system. And then model as an orchestrator. So, we introduced agents such as researcher, where you could give it a deep research prompt and it would take that information, it would break it down into steps, it would go out to the internet, it would pull information, it would go into your internal Microsoft graph, it would pull your context from your work, and then it would go through, maybe 10, 20 reasoning steps and ultimately deliver you that research report in that end-to-end workflow. But now we're moving to a place where we have models and with the right harness where we can start running long-running execution, right? Tasks that can take several minutes all the way into hours. And that is when you can give a full task to an agent. I need you to develop, maybe it's a bundle of content, such as a Word document, a PowerPoint, maybe it's an email, you want it to schedule a meeting, and it's able to take all of that and act as your colleague and be able to do that work on your behalf and frees up your time to focus on other work. Now, all of these work together, right, in any given day, but it's the evolution we're finding ourselves on as the AI industry, technology, capabilities, and Microsoft continues to evolve its offerings to our customers. So there are two interaction modes, and I want to dig in a little bit more into what I mean when I say prompt and response versus working with AI to achieve outcomes based on tasks you need to do. So on the left-hand side, we have example A, which is, let's say you have a request for a proposal document, and you go to Copilot and you ask it to summarize this 30-page RFP into a one-pager. That's a great prompt, right? Maybe in reality, we'd add some more detail, but you're going to get a good response back that's going to help you be able to understand the key points of the RFP. But when we come into the frame of mind where we're working with outcome and tasks, it could be something like, I need to respond to this RFP. I want you to go out and pull our messaging and positioning. I want you to draft a response to this particular opportunity. Based upon our pricing information, I want you to build a pricing sheet in Excel and then prep a 5-slide overview. And we can send that as a bundle in response, right? So we've gone from just one individual response to Cowork taking on a full load of work. In the next example, let's say you had a meeting with a colleague and you want to draft a follow-up email to that colleague about a particular project. Again, Copilot is going to be great. It's going to help you with that. You'll be able to send that email directly from the chat. It's awesome. But what if we move to a new state where we go to Cowork and we say something like, it's time to close out my action items. Let's create the requested project plan in Word based on recent email traffic. I want you to add that file directly to the project file in SharePoint, and then set up a meeting with my colleague to discuss next steps. So now you've taken an entire outcome you're trying to achieve and you've given Cowork a task. The one on the left might take you seconds, maybe a minute, depending on the complexity, whereas the one on the right could go from a minute all the way to maybe hours, depending on how complex of an ask you are requiring. And now you're working across multiple surfaces, right? Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, Teams, SharePoint, and Cowork has the ability to work across those surfaces for you while you direct the work versus authoring every single step of the process as you would in the traditional Copilot interface. So there's a mindset shift that unlocks Cowork. And this is something I really want to drive home as we continue in the presentation, right? With this current era of AI we are in, we're moving from being an author where we're typing every single step, we're describing every single result, to a director where we are running operations and AI is acting as a teammate or a colleague that's taking that information and doing the real work. The second is moving from only working with prompts. Prompts are extremely important, so I don't want to diminish the role of prompting and working with AI, but going into tasks. So not just asking for a paragraph, but asking for launch materials, asking for briefing materials or handoff materials. The units of work that we're able to produce in a shorter amount of time are continuously getting bigger and bigger. And then thirdly, and I think this is really important, is not just seeing Cowork as a tool for you to use, but seeing it as a teammate, right? Cowork can plan, you can invoke skills. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. And there's an entire working surface or canvas that you can work from. And it has information to it has access to all of the information that you do, and it can truly act on your behalf. And I think this mindset shift, as we all continue to move forward in the AI era, is one that's important to internalize. And I think is one that's going to help us to increase our value for ourselves and the companies, the teams, the initiatives that we are working within. So some of you, who might not be as familiar with Cowork or maybe the Microsoft 365 Copilot ecosystem might be wondering where Cowork fits in all of this, because we have different chats and agents. We have the Microsoft 365 apps. So I wanted to just provide an overview of some of the main surfaces that I use on the day-to-day to give you all an idea of where Cowork comes in. And the first is the primary chat interface that I think we're all used to. You come to, you can add links, you can attach documents. In Copilot, you can reference content and data that's within the Microsoft Graph, and you can use that for summaries, for drafting, brainstorming, strategizing, and it works right in the flow of work. It's awesome. The next, another one of our core agents is Researcher. When you want to go beyond, some of the kind of higher level outputs that you might get from chat and dig into a particular topic. Maybe you want to research, a competitor, or maybe it's an audience, or you want to understand the market landscape. And this is an agent you can use to go deeper. It usually takes, 5 to 10 minutes, depending on what you're doing, and you leave with a rich research artifact. And then, of course, the tried and true Microsoft apps: Word, PowerPoint, Excel, Teams, Outlook, right? Copilot also works within these apps, so you can create, refine, understand, summarize work, build out content directly right within the apps you're working in. And the output's going to vary depending on the surface. And then we move to Cowork, right? So where we can actually delegate the work that we need to do to keep us moving. And Cowork can work across all these different functionalities that are provided, whether in chat, in Researcher, the apps, and do even more to move you forward with the work that you need to ultimately accomplish. So, I wanted to talk about two key elements that really underpin Cowork and help bring this to life. And the first is Work IQ, or as we see on the screen here, the intelligence layer that personalizes Copilot to you and your organization. I like to kind of refer to Work IQ as having an AI at work that knows you, it knows your job, it knows how you work, it knows your team, your organization, your workflows, and it's able to come alongside you to aid you in accomplishing the work you need to do. And there are three key pillars of Work IQ. The first is skills and tools. So we can give Cowork specialized instructions to make its work more repeatable and tailored to what we are trying to achieve. And it can also go out there and use tools such as different applications to be able to produce the kinds of artifacts and work that we need. The next is context. And this is so important for enterprise AI solutions. Does the AI have memory of how you work, your style, how you communicate, your preferences? What are your recent projects that you're working on? And can it understand your patterns of how you work over time and apply that to the outputs that it's providing you? And then the next, which is the kind of holy grail, if you will, is the data. Your data across your emails, your Teams chats, your meetings, your files, SharePoint, OneDrive, all of that data that is constantly coming in and changing and evolving. It's pulling that in constantly to ensure that you're working from the latest snapshot of what is happening, or the latest entire picture of what is happening in your personal environment and the individuals and the teams and the projects that you're working with and working on. And then the next is speaking about it being built directly into Microsoft 365. So Cowork is a system level solution, if you will. It's cloud native. So that means it's not working directly on your laptop. It's working within Microsoft 365 cloud, and it has access to all of your data. It acts across the apps where the work happens, apps I've mentioned a few times, like Outlook, Teams, and Excel. You can conduct those long-running multi-step tasks, even if you close your laptop. So you can shut down your laptop, you can go grab a coffee, maybe go take a walk outside, decompress a little bit, and Cowork is still going to be working in the background to do the work you need to do. And when it's complete, those outputs are automatically saved to OneDrive. So you can immediately collaborate. There's enterprise access, so your teammates can access that content, and the security protections still apply. And speaking about security and governance, Cowork is operating inside of Microsoft 365 security boundary. So your identity, permissions, compliance, policies of your organizations, those apply by default. As mentioned before, it's working in what is called kind of a sandboxed cloud runtime. So whether you close your laptop, whether you're moving across devices from mobile to desktop, Cowork is still going to be running and operating in the background. And one feature I personally like a lot is user approval is still required. So it's not human out of the loop, it's human in the loop. If you're using Cowork to send an email, send a Teams message, if you want to add content to a SharePoint folder, Cowork is going to ask for your permission to conduct those tasks to make sure that there's continued alignment in what you are doing. So let's take a little UI tour of Cowork, and this will kind of start our foray into demoing. So here we can see I have the Copilot home screen up on my browser here. I have my new chat, search, library. I have my agents, and here, this is where I could type a normal prompt and response. But we're actually going to come over to agents right here, and I'm going to click all agents, and that's going to take me to what is called the agent store. And in the agent store, if you want to access Copilot, it's already one of my agents in my tenant, but you could just come here and search for Cowork if you wanted to. But I'm just going to go ahead and click it because we have it open here. And here we are on the Cowork home screen. So some things I want to point out. First, just kind of working from left to right here. It feels like your typical Copilot UI, but there are some nuances. And the first is if we come here to this slider icon, we have the ability to add in different plugins, such as Dynamics 365, M365 Admin Center, MCP, Fabric IQ. So Cowork can connect directly to plugins. And then we also have the option here to add different attachments or work context. So we can pull in cloud files directly. We can upload downloaded local images, files, and then we can also add our work context. And once we open up add work context, you can see when I talk about Work IQ, we have skills that you could incorporate, PDF, making a Word doc, an Excel sheet, custom skills you've built. You can pull in people, files that you're working on, meetings that you've recently had, emails, chats, channels, and sites, and add that context directly into what you're doing. And then also over here, for those who like to dictate to AI, as you can see the words coming up on screen, you have the option just to talk with Cowork, stream of thought. And I find this to be a really fast and easy way to get your prompts, your thoughts, and what you want Cowork to do right there in the prompt bar. And then down here, we have some what are called zero query prompts, where you can click one of the prompts and it will automatically load. And then we have your recent tasks that you've worked on here. And then if you have scheduled tasks, maybe you want to have a briefing that goes out at the start of every week. You would see them here. I don't have any scheduled tasks right now. And then up here is something we call model choice. So Cowork operates on Anthropic models. You can select Opus 4.7, Sonnet 4.6, or if you select auto, it's just going to select either model based upon the complexity of the task. And then once you actually run a prompt and you get into the next screen, this is a prompt I ran earlier. We're going to demo this momentarily. You have a progress bar so you can see the work that Cowork is doing and track the steps it's taking to complete the task that you have. There's the output folder. So this is where you would track the outputs that Cowork is delivering for you. You can download them, you can share them, you can visit them in your OneDrive. And then down here, we have the skills that Cowork used to accomplish the task. So some use cases. Femke was talking about, how are people using Cowork? And some popular ones, within Microsoft, ones that I use are things like meeting prep. We have a meeting coming up. I need you to go pull the right context, develop me a meeting brief, a deck, hold prep time on my calendar, and I want a follow-up draft ready to send after the meeting. The next might be an out-of-office handoff tracker. We all know that out-of-office scramble, you're going on vacation and you need to align everyone on how they need to support you and cover the work you're doing. So maybe you create an out-of-office handoff tracker where it's a document for your manager that covers all your key projects, meetings, mails, status, deadlines, and people who are covering for you. If we move to the bottom into more functional tasks, in marketing, I work in marketing. We do a lot of product launches. We need to run competitive analysis. We often build value prop documents, customer pitch decks for the products or the features that we're bringing to market, building that rapidly. Or for those of you in finance who are crunching numbers in Excel, being able to take the data in a spreadsheet or a workbook and building out a visual dashboard with pivot tables and charts and formulas that can show you budget, spend, forecast data, and then also provide you insights on that data. And these are just a few of the kind of abundant use cases that are out there and possible for you to use. So let's talk about, before we hop into a demo here, let's talk about the anatomy of a task. We've all been, used to talking about building prompts. With Cowork, we refer to them as tasks. So for the demo coming up, I'm actually going to prepare for a high impact customer meeting with Contoso, and I need an end-to-end meeting asset package. So with WorkIQ, I'm going to have it use my recent context to ground the work on my emails, files with opportunity details and call notes. And then I want Cowork to create for me, to prepare for the meeting, a one-page briefing doc for leadership, an 8-slide client-ready deck. And then I also am going to have it schedule a 30-minute prep calendar hold with my colleague, Cora. And then if you notice, I include that before drafting, I want it to show me its plan and its proposed narrative so I can steer it if needed. And then I provide some tone and guardrail information to end it so it understands the shape of my ask. So we're going to bring back up Cowork here. And I'm going to plug in the first prompt. Give me one moment. And we're going to bring it in. Okay, so that is the same exact prompt that we ran. And then I'm going to also give it a deck to use for a little bit of context about our company, which is called Zava in this fictitious scenario. So all I need to do is just come here, copy the link, and I go back to Cowork and I drop in the link here. I could have taken a different approach. I could have added the work context that way, but how I work, I like to just copy links and bring them right into the Surface. So I have 4.7 selected. That is my model of choice. And we're going to go ahead and hit send on the prompt. So as we can see, it's getting started. It's working on the request. When you typically send a prompt with Cowork, it does take a little bit just to understand what is this request, what is happening, and what do I need to do. And you can always click on the thought process or chain of thought, as it's called, to kind of see where Cowork is in the process. Because this is a customer meeting I'm preparing for, I actually have a skill here that I've built, and we're going to talk on skills in a bit. Oh, it did not deliver. So we're just going to, I'm just going to say try it again. Okay, and it is going. So as we can see here, it's starting to search across my content with Work IQ. It's searching for Contoso in my email, my Teams, my files. And then it's starting to actually, you can see it's reading the key documents. It's starting to read the files that are needed to run the prompt. And then on the right here, we can see that the progress bar has loaded with some of the key steps that it is taking to build that first kind of view of what it needs to accomplish before it moves into actually starting to create the artifacts. So it has all the files downloaded, and it's extracting the text from the documents. And it's really fun for me. I'm a little bit of a nerd. I like to just kind of watch Cowork as it works to see the process that it's taking to go through the tasks that I've given it. So here it's reading the remaining Java slides. We can click into the thought process at any time and kind of see what's happening in the background. And we will give this just another few seconds to load up. And the beautiful thing is I actually, ran this prompt earlier. So we're not going to have to sit here and wait for the entire thing to form. Again, these are long running tasks and execution. So what I'm going to do while this is running in the background, I'm going to come to the same exact prompt that I ran earlier, so we can take a look at all of the work that Cowork did right from this ask. So as we can see, same exact prompt, preparing for that high impact meeting. And as we scroll down, it completed the tasks of going through, bringing in the exec briefing skill, gathering the materials. It dug across all my recent context in emails, Teams, calendar, the Java deck. And then before it got started, because I asked it to within the task, I wanted it to give me that proposed narrative and structure for my sign off. So it's helping me understand what I'm walking into right here, what I'm walking into. And then it's also giving me a proposed narrative arc in one sentence about this situation, which is, this customer meeting with Contoso. There's potential 45 million expansion deal with stakeholders. There's some key tension. And we want to be able to land this deal with this long running customer. It outlines the structure of each deliverable that it's going to give to me, the leadership briefing, the client ready deck. There's an outline here that we can see of what it's going to work on, and then the prep calendar hold with Quora. And once I liked what I saw, which I did, I just told Cowork to go ahead. And that was giving Cowork the permission, if you will, to go ahead and move forward with the actual task. So if we go into, the thought process, you can see it prepared to work with the Word documents. It built the leadership briefing. It saved it. It prepared to work with the PowerPoint presentation. It built the slides. And then it told me that all three of the deliverables are ready. So first, there was that prep hold with Quora that I wanted to set. So if we come over to my Outlook here and come to my sent items, we can see that the meeting was sent directly. And if we just zoom in here, you can see that little sent by Cowork, and that's a sign that it was sent directly from Cowork. So that's been sent. That's great. The next thing we want to look at is that leadership briefing document that it built. So this is a Word document, and it brought in that context from the deck, from my emails, from my account data, that the stakes are high. It's either close or stall. We should not surface a competitor if we're not prompted. Here's what's changed since 5.3 based upon conversations happening, stakeholders, the talk track, and then risks and responses, and then some open gaps before walk-in. So this is something that I feel confident I could send to executives right from here, and everyone on the Zava team would be prepared to go into the meeting. The next is that customer deck that we requested. I'm a huge deck builder. I love getting creative and building designs. And I really find that Cowork is awesome at bringing decks to life in a way that resonate and are visually really powerful. So as we can see here, using the content within my tenant, it built out, where we started, our relationship with Contoso. It's been happening over 9 years. We've moved from a distribution partner to a strategic account with Contoso. This is our campaign mark, go ahead, outdoors. This is kind of the value proposition of what we believe we can provide to Contoso to continue that relationship. This is kind of financial modeling of what we expect with our co-marketing partnership that we're going to be proposing and the total contract value. Channel discipline, so working across retail, e-commerce, direct to customer. And then finally, the path forward, right? And one thing I want to note is within some of our emails, the customer told us that they need to finalize this deal by May 2026. So this is just an example of it pulling in that context directly into this presentation. So we're showing the customer that we're hearing them and we're responding and acting based upon their needs. And here we have, I just want to call your attention to, the progress bar, the output folder. At any point, I could download this file. I could open it in PowerPoint and continue editing or collaborating, or I could open it within OneDrive. But I want to call your attention again down here to the skill. So I pulled in, I built an executive briefing skill that Copilot uses when I need to prepare for a meeting such as this. So if we come back over to the deck, we're going to talk a little bit about skills. So what is a skill when you add that to Cowork, which is already a powerful tool? Think about a skill as a reusable work pattern or standing instructions that you can give to Cowork when you want to complete a particular form of work and you want it to be consistent every single time. So some skills that, I've worked with is, one that is a sound like me skill that I had Cowork look at my last 100 emails I sent, understand my tone, my phrasing, and my habits. And anytime I'm working with Cowork to communicate, it invokes that skill and then it drafts content in my voice. The next is, let's say you want to be able to build branded decks consistently. You might have a template, but when Cowork is developing slides, you can tell it to follow a particular palette, message-led headlines, one idea per slide, right? And then within that skill, you can encode triggers. So if I type something like build me a deck or make this presentation ready, the router within Cowork is going to pick up that skill and it's going to apply it to the work that you're doing every single time. A third one is meeting to action, right? Let's say you have a meeting, you have the transcript that comes up and you go to Cowork and you say, hey, I need to action on this meeting that just happened. You could build a skill where you, for example, you take the recap, chats, files from the last 7 days related to that meeting, and it produces a brief for you, right exactly how you want it to be built. And building a skill is easy. There are a few ways. You can have Cowork create a skill for you. Let's say you build an awesome deck and you're like, hey, Cowork, I want to turn this particular deck style into a skill. Another way you can do it is you can work with Copilot Chat to build you a markdown file. And the important thing is once you build that skill, you just need to go into your OneDrive and then go to documents. And then once you go into documents, you'll have a Cowork folder and then skills. You put in the skill name as a folder and then you drop in that skill markdown file right there in the folder. And then Cowork is going to be able to reference it. So really quick education moment on what do skills actually look like. So there's nothing technical about building a skill, I promise. It's a markdown file, and this is actually what the skill looks like for the prompt that I just ran. So it's in, we have the name and description in what is called front matter. And this is basically, you could think about it as the header of the skill, where you have the name of the skill, which is exec briefing, and then you have the description. And we're just saying that we want you to activate anytime the user's preparing for a customer meeting, trigger on phrases like, I'm preparing for a meeting, I have a meeting tomorrow, brief me, prep me. And then once it does that, it says that we want to encode the standard below for what executive meeting prep should look like. So Cowork, we're going to shape what Cowork is asked to produce, whether it is a Word doc, a PowerPoint file, an email. We're going to apply the standards that we're going to scroll down and see below. And if you look here, we can see the point that says implicit. So implicit false, that basically just means that we don't want every single task that we put in where we say meeting to invoke the skill, right? If the skill is not needed. So rather than doing implicit true, we put user invocable true. And that means that if I use any of the trigger phrases within the description up above, that is then going to invoke the skill. So it's invoked in a more purposeful way rather than maybe accidentally invoking if you use a word that's related to the skill that's been created. And then if we scroll down, won't dive too deep into this, but we can see the details of the skill. So the triggers, things that you would say that would trigger the skill, inputs to inspect. So before drafting anything, I want you to look at my calendar, attendees, emails, team chats, meeting notes, the reasoning pattern of how you want Cowork to think and apply its reasoning to your task, the voice that you want it to build with, sharp, executive ready, lead with what changed, why it matters, what to do next, a quality bar, next actions, failure modes. So it's basically just an instruction or a spec sheet that you provide, and then it lets Cowork to deliver you, allows Cowork to deliver you more consistent outputs depending on the workflow you're trying to achieve. So with skills, just a quick takeaway there is, whether you're an individual trying to encode standards around how you work, your voice, your structure, you can use those to have Cowork apply that every single time to what you're doing. If you're a team, let's say you're a manager or a teammate, and you want your team to have particular standards around how you produce a deck or how you send out a newsletter or how you send out recap emails and action items from a meeting, you could have a skill that you share with all your teammates. And now you've encoded shared standards that drives consistent work without necessarily needing a deep dive process doc. Now let's take it a step even larger. Let's say now we're talking about your entire organization, right? We could have a skill or sets of skills that entire organizations use to start snapping to a particular way of working and delivering across functions. So skills are extremely powerful, whether you're using them as an individual, a team, or at the organizational level. So we're going to do one more demo here just to kind of show a little bit more of what Cowork can do. And for this demo, we have a executive review tomorrow on Q3 and Q4 global sales. This is normally a long prep cycle. We need to pull the data. We need to build a deck. We're going to build a dashboard. We need to write a leadership update. This is work. These are things that would take you a bit of time and work to get done. So again, I'm just going to bring in the prompt here to get Cowork started. I'm preparing for this executive review, use my recap emails and sales data in this particular SharePoint folder. I want you to review performance data and build me a 10-slide deck, an Excel executive dashboard summarizing performance. And I wanted to send a leadership email to my executive sponsor summarizing those results. So I'm just going to come over here and I'm going to select this data folder, copy and paste it. That's my kind of way of bringing in content. And then we're going to send the prompt. Just like last time, Cowork is immediately going to begin working on your request. And the awesome thing is you could have 5 Cowork windows open and have 5 different tasks running at the same time. You'll be running concurrently and being tracked by Cowork. I think the one I ran earlier just completed, if you all were able to hear those dings. Now, one thing I want to point out is that you can interrupt Copilot, right? Or Cowork. In the traditional Copilot experience, you have to wait until Copilot's done generating before you prompt it again. But with Cowork, you can just keep on adding work you need to get done into the queue, and Cowork is just going to continue working on your task. So I'm actually going to bring in the Excel sheet that has all of our sales data from H2 of the last fiscal year. And I'm going to ask it to, I want it to build me an interactive HTML dashboard that is going to basically show how our sales performed on a world map. And it's going to be something that's interactive and visual and something that we could share in meetings. And I think it would bring a big wow factor for individuals wondering how our sales performance went. So Cowork is continuing to work in the background. It's bringing in its proposal for what it's thinking it should do. And at the same time, as that generates, I'm just going to add in the second prompt. As you could see, the prompt was not completed. I'm going to say go, so it proceeds. And then Cowork is just going to continue to work through the tasks that I'm giving it in real time. And you can see here, there's a progress bar that's showing what Cowork is doing in real time. So I have full visibility and steerability into the process. And as I added that second prompt, we could see that Cowork told me that it's adding that interactive map to the package. It's data driven, so I can build it in parallel. So that's great. Now, again, this takes a little while. It's a long running task. So I ran this same exact prompt earlier. And this time I'm just going to jump to more of the outputs to show you what Cowork developed for me. So it gave me that proposed narrative arc. It gave me the proposal for the deck, the headline insights for the board, and I told it to go, and it went. It was off and running. In the email, mind you, I did ask Cowork to send an email to one of my executives, and it did that for me on my behalf. As you can see here, the email is sent as well as the attached outputs that Cowork made. And we see that little sent by Cowork sign down there. And then if we come back here, we could take a look at the executive dashboard based upon that sales data that I wanted Cowork to build. And as this loads up, here we go. We have a full Excel file with a dashboard. These are real formulas that you can click into. You can edit the data. And I'll actually just pull this up in Excel large so we can see it. So we have the headline dashboard with all the data compiled. We have the plan versus actuals. We see the bar chart there, the channel mix of what was driving sales globally, and then a pivot table here that shows region times quarter and what was the revenue over Q3 to Q4. So for any finance folks in the room, again, this is something that could take a very long time, but with Cowork, it was accomplished. I think this prompt actually took me maybe 10 minutes in total. And then secondly, we have the board review PowerPoint. Since this is an internal document, not one for a customer, it actually used our Zava branding, which is like deep blues and ambers and then this creamy white. and brought in that data from our QBR decks, as well as the Excel sheet with all of that sales data. And right here, we can see it's telling us what's happening in EMEA, in APAC, in terms of the gap loss in North America, and then as well as emerging markets in Latin America and the Middle East and Africa. And then again, 3 things to watch. So we have a deck that's already built based upon data we already have access to. And then lastly, something I want to show is, we asked it to build that interactive live map. And it created something, I think, really impactful here. And this is an HTML dashboard. You could share it across your team and you can present it. And if we look at it closely, just zooming in into some of the components, we have revenue, markets active, top region up there, the growth tier where we're above plan, on plan, below plan. And then we have the playback functionality already built in. And this is straight from Cowork. And as I scrub the slider going across July into August, into September, and so on into the second half, you can see that it's bringing in the sales data in a really visual and interactive and fun way right here. And this is something that, you could take into an executive meeting, something you could share with leadership. You can scrub it manually, or you can just play it and watch it unfold. And it's truly interactive. We can move it around while it's working. We can zoom into a particular region. Let's say we're going into Europe here, and we can see what's happening in individual spots. So in just about 10 minutes, Cowork created this entire bundle of content. And now I'm ready to move forward with presenting about the sales data. So a few things in closing, some pitfalls, some things to avoid is first is we're not prompting with Cowork like it's a chat prompt and response. We're delegating outcomes. Secondly is when you're prompting or building out a task, either one is to, give constraints, give deadlines. You need to give context so the model has that alignment with what you're trying to achieve. The next is, skipping the plan review. You don't have to, include that step that I included in my prompts, but I like to do that just so I can see what Cowork is planning to do before it actually goes and starts to produce the work. And then doing one-off tasks in Cowork forever. As I showed you with the skill, if there's something you want to do repeatedly, or there's an output Cowork gives you that you like, you can take that and turn it into a reusable pattern with a skill. And then lastly is treating Cowork as fully autonomous. It does have autonomous capabilities, but ultimately you're the director, you're in the driver's seat, you're in charge. So the smartest first 30 days, week 1 is, just identify what are some pain points, where are some areas where you think that Cowork could be useful. Maybe it's the meeting prep and out of office handoff, a weekly status. And then 2 is delegate. Build out a prompt. You can use Copilot to create the task prompt for you, and then start to experiment with Cowork and see what it delivers for you, how it pulls in that data for you. Week 3 is in code. Once you kind of see what's working and what you like, start to experiment with building out skills that you can use to create instructions that help you drive repeatable workflows. And then ultimately measure. How were you doing it before? How long did it take you? Where did you need to click and drag and drop and have context pulled in, right? And now you have Cowork that can just take that work and do it for you and produce really high quality outputs all in one workflow. So in closing, I just want to say thank you everyone for your time and tuning in. I hope this presentation was helpful and inspiring for you as you dive deeper into Cowork. And my question for all of you in the audience is, what is the first outcome that you will delegate this week? Thank you so much.
Wow, great presentation. Thank you so much. We have a few questions, if that's okay, if we
Sure.
can ask that. Of course, there are some people who had some comments as well, but I want to ask if there is something that you can make like a project, so something that you can come back and also can reuse, like creating a project in your co-work, like something that you can work on all the time.
Yeah, of course. So if we come back here, so let's come back to the Cowork home screen. These chats that I have, or these sessions that I have, any single one of them, I can always come back to, and I can keep
Mhm.
on building on the work that I first started with. So let's say this is a project that I know is going to, be a few months long. I can start this as a project folder, and then as the project evolves, as meetings happen, as I need to build or update artifacts, as I need to communicate, strategize, I can continue to do all of that in one session. So even whether you're working with Copilot, whether you're working with Cowork, I would view each of your sessions as kind of a mini project where you continue to drive the work forward.
Interesting. And you talked about like organization skills. Is there something that you can do from your organization part as well? Put that in and bring that together, or is it something that you need to share? Like, can you do something from your tenants or your as an admin to say put the organization skills in?
Ooh, that is a great question. There are a set of kind of pre-built skills that come with Cowork. Some of
Mhm.
those are, meeting notes, helping you to organize your inbox or your calendar. So there are some standard ones that come with any Cowork experience that will load.
Mhm.
Now, from an admin point of view, I don't know that answer exactly. I can follow up with you, Femke, but it could
Yeah,
be a
good.
possibility. Yeah.
Awesome. I have a few more questions, but I don't know if Dani have something.
Yeah, so I was wondering, earlier you said and you shared that when you created PowerPoint presentation that it used the Zava branding.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you included in your prompt, or did you update maybe a template or something that it used that, or does Cowork just know?
Yeah, that is a great question. So within the grounding data, there is a Zava organizational overview PowerPoint deck. So because we're using Opus, it can go in that deck. It can see the deck, if you will, using computer vision. It understands the colors, the palette, the aesthetic, and then it's able to mirror that into the output it creates because it knows that I work in Zava, and with Work IQ, it understands that it should pull from that deck document.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, great
Okay.
question.
And also, oh, sorry.
We have so many questions. So there are people who have like different kind of skills from other, like for example, like from Claude or from like ChatGPT. They want to put it in to Cowork. Is that
Yeah.
something that you need to do, like create it from like the chat based, or do you put it in like your map in OneDrive in your skills map? What is the best way?
Yeah, there are multiple ways. If you have skills you've already developed in other platforms, you just need to take the copy or the words in that skill and then save it as a markdown file, and you can add it into your drive. That's kind of the most traditional way. Another way is that you can just go into Cowork and you can tell it, I want to create a skill that does, XYZ. And then Cowork has a skill for building skills. And then it
True.
will create that skill for you and it will automatically add it to your OneDrive, where it should be. And then the third way is, let's say, I mentioned this a bit earlier. Let's say you produce a deck that you really, really liked with Cowork. You could say, hey, Cowork, that deck was awesome. Let's build a skill in coding the palette, the typography, the hex codes for the colors, the style, and everything from that deck. And let's turn that into a specific skill. And Cowork will do that and then add it to your OneDrive. So there are kind of different ways you can go about it.
I love it. Dani, do you have another question before I ask another question?
Yeah, one more question I had is, you said before that Opus was your preferred model that you use. There are multiple that you can use, I think.
Yes.
Is there any like, well, what model do you choose for which type of task, or is it just your own choice, basically?
Oh, that's a great question. So lately I've been using Opus 4.7 working across Copilot. But if I were to kind of separate, I do enjoy using GPT models for like brainstorming, for strategy, for if I know I'm going to kind of lock in into a planning session. I find that GPT kind of has like a more conversational flow and it builds out really strong ideas. Once I'm getting into execution, like I need to build a deck or I need to actually create the actual planning document and the artifacts. I find that Claude models, Opus for me in particular, Opus and Sonnet, quite frankly, but Opus for me in particular, it just really nails the outputs in a way that resonates with me. So that's how I delineate them if I do choose to use different models.
All right.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a last question, and then we are all way over time. Do you know, well, like Cowork is now in the Frontier program, so you need to put it in your tenants, but you need to be Frontier, right?
Yeah.
Is it, do you know when it comes like general available for everyone? Or do you
I do not.
Do you have an ID?
I do not have that information. But when I do know, you all will also know because there will be an announcement about it. So,
oh, really? Good. We will wait.
It's coming. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, for the people who don't know, like if you are in the Frontier list, most of the time is there like different kind of features that will sort of testing out in the first time, right? And then it comes general available. So it's good to know that not for everyone is Cowork available yet. You need to be a Frontier, put Frontier on in your tenants, and then you can use Cowork. So thank you so much for this like great presentation. We have so many people who give a reaction and ask for the presentation and ask for to watch your session back as well. So thank you so much. I think we all have learned a lot, and I would say see you next time somewhere over the world, I think.
Sounds great. And Femke, Dani, thank you for having me, and thanks for watching, everyone. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you, Efe.